Hey everyone, I'm Adam Haritan from Learn Your Land, and I'm spending my time out of doors here in western Pennsylvania, enjoying this beautiful, crisp autumn morning and all the surprises that come along with it. And I brought my jar along with me, and maybe you're wondering, why in the world would you bring a jar with you? Well, I brought my jar along because I'm going to use it as a collection vessel when I collect some plants to bring home so that I can make a tea out of them. It's going to be my way of connecting directly to this land today. Now, I haven't been to this area for quite some time, so I'm actually not quite sure what to expect, but because this video is uploaded, you can expect that I did find some plants and I will be making a tea from the ones that I did collect. Typically when I go out looking for plants or even specific mushrooms, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to find. I spend a lot of time hanging out in the woods here, and so I know where wild cranberries can be found, so I don't just wander around looking for wild cranberries or boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum. I know a few patches where boneset grows, and so I'll go to those areas specifically to find that plant. But walking around, just seeing what I can find, I don't typically do that to collect my medicine or to collect my food. But I'm going to do that today because I'm going to show you how easy it is to really connect to any land that you have access to by sustainably foraging some plants that you could bring home and use either as food or as medicine. And rather than me just being an observer today or just a spectator, I'm going to be an active participant in this land's ecology. And in my opinion, foraging for food or for medicine, it's one of the best ways for us as human beings to reconnect to land, to build ourselves out of the elements that create this land. And I mean, you have to build yourself out of something, right? You can't just go through life without eating or without drinking. And rather than building yourself out of inferior food, inferior drinks, inferior experiences, build yourself out of the best. And the best can be found here. The best food's found here. The best water is found out here. The best experiences, you could be sure, are found out here. So if you have a few minutes to spare, what do you say you come along with me and let's go see what we can find. It didn't take me too long to find the first species that we will be discussing because it's very commonly found. It's somewhat weedy around here in Pennsylvania, and this is common yarrow, or Achillea millefolium. There's another species of Achillea here in Pennsylvania. It's Achillea tarmica, though that one is an escapee of gardens, so you're unlikely to find that one. If you do find Achillea, it's probably yarrow, Achillea millefolium. So this one's in the composite family, or the Asteraceae family, and this one has alternately arranged leaves that are really finely dissected. It almost appears fern-like. Now, some people might confuse this for wild carrot because the leaves look somewhat similar, but they're in two different families and the flowering structures are completely different. This one flowers from summer through fall, and it sends up a flowering head made up of numerous white flowers. Whenever you crush this plant and you smell it, it's made up of a lot of volatile oils that give it a strong fragrance, and it smells somewhat herbaceous. And traditionally, this plant has been used as a diaphoretic and a diuretic. So diaphoretic meaning it helps to induce sweating, and diuretic meaning helps to increase urination. It also has antimicrobial properties and hypotensive properties, meaning it helps to lower blood pressure. Now, I'm just harvesting a couple of these leaves. I don't use this regularly, so I'm not too worried about a strong medicinal effect on my body. Before I do use this, though, I'll bring this home and dry it out because it's kind of wet, and this plant typically inhabits, grasslands, meadows, edges of areas, and so it can be somewhat wet and moist. Dry it out first before you use it so it doesn't rot. So I'm going to harvest some of these, put this in my jar, and look for some other plants that I can harvest for this tea. I'm really excited that I stumbled across this plant right here, and I'm excited because it's going to lend a nice spicy lemony flavor to this tea. And this is SPICEBUSH or Lindera benzo, and this is a member of the laurel family. We have a tree in the laurel family here in Pennsylvania which is sassafras. So this is somewhat related, but this is a shrub, so it doesn't grow to be probably more than 3 meters tall. You can find it in the understory where not a lot of sunlight penetrates. You might have some sunlight, looks like it's coming out right now, but it doesn't want a whole lot of sunlight, so you're not really going to find it out in the open. Look in the understory for this plant. It's a deciduous shrub, meaning it's going to lose its leaves probably any day now, and you can see that the green is fading to a yellow. It's not really fading to a yellow. What's really going on is that the chlorophyll pigments are breaking down and revealing some of the yellows and maybe some of the oranges that were there all along. The green was stronger all year, and then whenever that breaks down, it reveals the yellows, which would be the xanthophylls, and some of the carotenoids, which are some of the oranges. These leaves are alternately arranged along the branches, and they are entire. I mean, there's no teeth to them. And whenever you crush them, whenever you crush any part of this plant, very lemony, very fragrant. So notice that whenever you find this plant. You can even smell it in the winter time. And what I'm going to do is harvest some of the green leaves and bring them home. There's not a whole lot of them left, but they're going to senesce anyway. I'll harvest some of them and bring them home and bring them into my body, essentially. So medicinally, this plant has been used and studied for its antiparasitic properties, anti-candida properties, and antiviral as well. Now, because I'm harvesting some of these leaves that are senescing, it's probably not going to have the strongest medicinal benefits. If I was suffering from an acute or a chronic condition, I'd probably harvest this plant when it was fresher. But I just want some flavor. I just want some medicine from the woods today. I don't feel that bad harvesting some of the leaves that are going to die back anyway. But again, this is SPICEBUSH Lindera benzoin. It's a plant you can find all year round. The leaves will obviously be gone in the winter, but scratch it and smell it. And if it smells somewhat lemony and fragrant, it probably is Lindera benzoin. So a little farther down the path, I discovered another plant. I'm really excited to throw this one into my wild tea as well. This one doesn't really need an introduction, but if you can't see it up close, tell you a little about it. So this is Rosa multiflora, the multiflora rose, one of the most invasive plants we have here in Pennsylvania. Very common, very frequently found. There are over a dozen species of rose here in Pennsylvania. Many are native, some are non-native, but this one is by far the most aggressive and invasive of them all. And this one has compound leaves, so it has many leaflets, and the leaflets are serrated, and there are a lot of prickles on this plant as well. So if you're walking through the woods, you're definitely going to feel them if you're not too careful. Now, why I like to add this to my teas, why I like to harvest some of this medicine, is for the vitamin C content. Now, vitamin C is an absolutely essential nutrient. It's one that we cannot produce in our bodies. But if you look around out in the wild and you harvest some of these plants, you understand it's very easy to acquire out in the wild, especially when you're consuming species of rose. So this one in particular has about 200 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams of tissue. So what does that mean? Well, let's compare it to something. Let's compare it to the orange, because everybody says oranges are great sources of vitamin C. Might be a pretty good source. About 100 grams of orange, which is about a medium-sized orange, contains about 53 milligrams of vitamin C. 100 grams of this, so the equivalent of roses, contains about 4 times the amount of vitamin C. Now you're probably saying, well, it's a lot easier to eat 100 grams of orange than it is to eat 100 grams of this because this is so small. Well, that just means you don't need a whole lot of this to acquire the same amount of vitamin C. So I don't feel too bad harvesting some of these fruits because it is such an invasive, aggressive plant. I'm going to harvest some of these rose hips, the whole flesh and the seeds as well, throw it into my tea, and I'm going to brew that for a little bit when I get home and acquire some of the vitamin C that way. There's also vitamin C in the spicebush leaves. There's also vitamin C in the yarrow. There's probably a little more in this species right here. And actually right behind me, about 20 feet, there's another plant that I want to talk about. So let's go over there and check that one out. So this is the eastern white pine tree, Pinus strobus. One of my favorite trees here in Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania used to have a whole lot more eastern white pine trees, but throughout the 1700s and the 1800s, it was one of the first trees to be wiped out by many companies in the logging industry. So we don't have a whole lot of native wild stands left. We have a few, Cook Forest State Park is a great place to see some tall eastern white pine trees, including the tallest tree we have here in Pennsylvania, which is the Longfellow pine. That's about 184.7 feet tall. This specimen's a little smaller, but it still deserves some recognition. So eastern white pine trees can be differentiated from other pine trees here in Pennsylvania by the number of leaves per bundle. There are 5 of them. It's the only native pine tree here in Pennsylvania that has leaves borne in fascicles or bundles of 5. Traditionally, many parts of this plant have been used. The pine pollen, which is produced in the springtime. Also, the inner bark can be used as well. I'm going to harvest some of the leaves. Maybe the nutrient or medicinal level isn't as high in the leaves as maybe some of the other parts of the plant, but I'm going to harvest it today and throw it into this tea just so I don't have to hack away at some of the bark. And obviously there's no pine pollen this time of year. So we see, just like multiflora rose, there's some vitamin C in the leaves and the inner bark as well, probably more in the inner bark, but there's about 40 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams of tissue. Also, this plant's very high in antioxidants, especially the proanthocyanidins. So I'll harvest some of these leaves, throw this in the tea, give it a nice pine resiny flavor, and maybe find one more plant, maybe 2. We'll see what's along the way. You know, I mentioned we might find 1 or 2 more species, and literally there are probably a dozen or so on this log alone. We're just gonna focus on 1 more because my jar is getting kind of full. I'm really excited. I wanna get home and start making this tea. So the one that we're gonna talk about right now might surprise some of you because it's actually not in the plant kingdom. So it's going to require a slightly different processing method in order to make a tea or a decoction out of it. Slightly different than what I'm going to do with these plants in here. And this is none other than the turkey tail fungus, Trametes versicolor. Now, I just spoke in depth about this mushroom 1 video ago, and so if you haven't seen that, go check that out, and you will learn about turkey tail and 2 of its lookalikes, which include the violet-toothed polypore and the false turkey tail. And because this is a fungus and it's a medicinal mushroom, it's going to require a longer processing method. So of course I'll dry this out, but this one will require maybe simmering for about 2 hours. You know, I'd say at least 1 hour, if not 2 hours, before I decide to combine it with the other materials in here. Because this is made out of chitin, and it's much more tough. The cellular structure is much more tough compared to the cellulose found in these plants. So this will require a slightly longer processing method. Other fungi on this log, just want to mention them real quick. I do see the violet-toothed polypore, Tricaptum biform. That one has a violet pore surface though, so it's not going to be white on the bottom. I see Flebia radiata, but that one is a crust fungus, so you shouldn't confuse that for turkey tail. There's Pinus stypticus, the bioluminescent mushroom. That one glows in the dark, turkey tail doesn't. That one has gills in the bottom. There's crowded parchment, Sterum complicatum up top. That one's orange, and that one does not have a pore surface. But turkey tail is the one that has concentric zones. It's kind of leathery, and it's got a white pore surface in the bottom. But again, I can't just combine this in this jar, you know, make a tea in 15 minutes like I would with these plants in here, because this one's made out of chitin. So I'm going to have to simmer this after drying it, maybe crushing it up. Simmer this for at least an hour, if not 2 hours, before adding it to the stock that I'm going to make out of this. So we're going to stop there for today. I've got my jar that's completely full right now, and I'm excited to get home and make a tea out of this. And it's not technically considered a tea because that refers to one particular species, which is Camellia sinensis, the tea plant. Green tea, black tea, oolong tea, all those different fermentation stages. So this would be considered more like an infusion. And I'm not going to really show you how I make medicine. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know. Perhaps I can make a video on that, or a couple videos on that. The purpose of this video is just to take you out and show you how easy it is to acquire medicine from your land. What I'm going to do first, though, I'm going to bring this home and dry everything out so that I can preserve it for as long as I need to. But it's also going to help break up some of the cellular structure so that I can extract the most medicine. And again, the plants only require maybe 15-20 minutes. Simmer the water, then turn it off, and just let it sit there for some time. The mushroom, however, turkey tail, Trametes versicolor, that might take a little longer. Put that in a separate pot, maybe 1 hour to 2 hours, but of course dry it out first and then break it up. Then you can combine the two, and then you've got medicine from your land. And I'm really excited that I got the chance to come out here today and take you along. So you can see it's really easy to build yourself out of elements that create this kind of area. And I'm not trying to treat anything in my body or cure anything with this one beverage right here. The only thing maybe I'm trying to treat or cure is a slight lack of nature connection or nature deficiency, and I think this will help a whole lot. And I know it can help you as well if you get out there and interact with your land in this most intimate way by building yourself out of it through food and through medicine as well. Thanks for watching this video, really appreciate it. Encourage you to go to learnyourland.com and sign up for the newsletter so that we can stay in touch with each other. Also, if you're on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks again, hope to see you on the next video.